Hi, everyone. Very good evening to all of you. Welcome to today's session. I hope all of you are doing well and safe as we are going through the crisis today. But most of you, or some of you, have started returning to work. So I hope all of you are keeping safe. And thank you so much for joining us for the next in our series of Meet with Digital Thinkers Fireside Chat. And we have been showcasing stories of digital leaders transforming businesses using technology over the last 2 to 3 months. And today we have one such digital leader who will talk about his story of using digital to transform a key area of our lives. And to give more context to that conversation today, just let me take a few minutes. We are seeing the digital revolution touching every sphere of our life, whether it is healthcare, education, entertainment, or work. However, one area that has undergone complete transformation recently and on a global scale is education. And the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has changed education forever. So with schools shut all across the world, there was a sudden shift away from the classroom and the result online learning to augment their education. And while it is well established that the online education sector was rapidly growing even before the COVID-19 pandemic, it is safe to say that the contagion has accelerated this growth at an unimaginable rate. And more than anything else, online education has brought to center stage the possibility of making quality education ubiquitous and accessible to all, making it a key lever in meeting India's education goals. And when we're looking at massive number of users, which are actually running into billions, and when we're talking about delivering on the key principles of India's education policy around enabling delivery of quality and affordable education to all, and bridging the digital divide to get more and more students to join the mainstream of the knowledge economy, with these kind of massive numbers, we are looking at a scale, availability, agility, and affordability factors, which only cloud can help achieve. And we already have examples of how cloud is helping revolutionize India's education system. One leading example of that is Swayam, which is one of India's leading massive open online course or MOOC platforms, which has been initiated by Government of India under Digital India. Now, the platform, which seeks to take the best teaching learning resources to all, including the most disadvantaged, runs on cloud. And with over 15 million students enrolled, for the platform to reach its true potential has been made possible with cloud. And it is a great honor and pleasure for me, to invite a very key guest, a very important guest, to talk about Swayam's cloud journey and the vision for tech-led revolution in India's education sector. So please join me in welcoming Professor Andrew Thangaraj, Professor, Department of Electrical Engineering, IIT Madras, and NPTEL Coordinator for IIT Madras. Professor Andrew was instrumental in initiating the online certification effort of NPTEL and is currently the National Coordinator for Swayam. He is also the initiator and coordinator of the newly launched BSc in Programming and Data Science for IIT Madras. Just to tell you more about Professor Andrew, Professor Andrew received his BTech in Electrical Engineering from IIT Madras and PhD in Electrical Engineering from the Georgia Institute of Technology. He was a postdoctoral research at the GTL CNRS Telecom Lab at Georgia Tech Lorraine, Metz, France from August 2003 till May 2004. And since 2004, he has been a faculty at the Department of Electrical Engineering, IIT Madras, where he is currently a professor. Since 2011, he has been one of the NPTEL coordinators for IIT Madras, and his research interests are in the broad areas of information theory, error control coding, and information theoretic aspects of cryptography. So thank you so much, Professor Andrew Thangaraj, for joining us, for taking out time for this session today. I'm grateful to you for that. And to take the discussion forward and understand more about Swayam's journey, on with cloud, I would like to invite Deepak Ajmani, Country Head Corporate Business for Google Cloud. Deepak is a part of the executive leadership team at Google Cloud India, and his team at Google engages with customers and partners to increase market awareness and ensure customer success on Google Cloud. And Deepak is an industry veteran with over 22 years of experience in leading and scaling business units at companies such as Oracle and Dell EMC. So before I hand it over to Deepak and Professor Andrew, I would request all of you to send your questions as the fireside chat as the session goes on. Whatever questions you have for Professor Andrew and for Deepak, you can send them to us in the Q&A box, which is there in front of you. I think this is a great opportunity to ask Professor Thangaraj about his tech vision for education in India, as well as about Swayam and the cloud journey. So thank you so much once again, Professor Thangaraj and Deepak. So Deepak, I'll hand it over to you here.
Thank you so much, Shipra. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's a pleasure to have you all on the call. Welcome, Professor Andrew. It's always a pleasure to interact with you and learn so much from you every day. And for all the great things that you're doing together, I thought it's a great opportunity for us to have a quick chat about some of the cool things that we have put in place and some of the things that are on the anvil. So with that, Professor Andrew, I'm actually going to get started with some of the questions that might be quite relevant to our audience today. So Professor Andrew, Swayam is one of India's leading online course platform, and it's revolutionizing the Indian education system. Can you tell the audience a little bit about Swayam's journey and the role of NPTEL and IIT Madras in helping the platform delivering on the key principles of India's education policy around access and quality?
Thanks, Deepak. Thanks, Shipra. It's great to be on a program like this and addressing people about cloud and portals and also education, right? So education is the central idea, I would think, of whatever that it is that I do, at least. Maybe I'm sure Google Cloud does something more as well. So the Swayam story is actually quite a long story as usual. I don't want to go too much into history, but I think to set a proper context, if you look at engineering colleges in the country, up until 90, even there were very few. And around the 90s is when the permissions were given to a lot of private entities to open engineering colleges. There was a huge boom in the number of engineering colleges. It also was timed with the IT boom. And the IT industry needed a huge number of people. So it was quite a good thing at that time. So somewhere around mid-90s is when people realized how are these faculty going to be trained in the engineering colleges? How are students going to be trained? There's lots of issues about teaching quality being ununiform and people not even having access to good quality education. So that was on one side. And the other side were the IITs and IISc and the top tier institutions where the teaching quality was great, but it's not possible for everybody to go there. The competition is very high. So there was this idea that was mooted back in late 90s by Professor Anand, who was then director of IIT Madras, Professor Mangal Sundar, who was one of the first founder coordinators of NPTEL. They came up with this proposal for NPTEL. So they said we could capture the lectures that happen at IITs, put them up on a portal, make it available for everybody. See, remember, this is late 90s. I think cloud was not so much of a hot word at that time. So they were running with on-premise servers, and NPTEL really caught on. I mean, people really loved the content. They started looking at it. They started enjoying it for about 10-15 years. That went on. And somewhere around 2011 is when I got involved in NPTEL. And around 2012 or 13 is when this whole MOOCs business started heating up a lot. So now internet had advanced, everything had advanced to a stage where not only could you just record lectures and put them up on YouTube or something like that, you could meaningfully deliver a course online. So that's a big jump in terms of, you could engage with people, you could present assignments, expect answers from them, evaluate them, all of that you could do in scale. So this was shown by a few international portals as well. So now education as such, when you want to roll it out in high quality, large scale, you have to be mindful, of course, of quality of the content and your ability to deliver it in scale. But that alone is not enough, I mean, in a country like India, where, so much depends on the reputation of what you learn from the institutions and things that you learn. You also need a good mechanism for evaluating people. right? How do we, I mean, online, that's a big question mark, isn't it? I mean, you know that somebody had enthusiasm to learn, they went through something, but how do we depend on the evaluation? How do we know for sure that the person did what they did? So these were questions that disturbed us a little bit. Instead of just rolling out an online portal, we wanted to provide a solution which made sense for a country like India. So NPTEL in 2014 started its online certification effort. So this involved running a portal which would offer courses on for anybody to take. This was actually not really on Google Cloud. I think maybe it was on Google Cloud. I can't think, but this was to 2014 before we got officially involved with Google Cloud. So this portal started, but with a lot of help from Google engineers, not Google Cloud engineers, Google engineers themselves, who were alums of IITs and all that. They put together a portal for us. Then we also wanted to conduct exams. This exam, I keep emphasizing this because I think as EdTech evolves, exams are going to be very important as well. And we did exams in person. Even now we do exams in person. Every semester we run the courses on the portal. At the end of the semester, students have to come to a center, write an exam. Only if they pass that, they get a certificate. So this model we introduced back in 2014. By 2-3 years, it was very clear that this model was a huge success. Top quality education coming online free for anybody who was interested, plus a reputed certification. Like you go write an exam and you get a certification. And colleges picked it up in a big way. We started the local chapter program. So by 2017, everybody was interested, including the government. And the government wanted to do a portal to go beyond engineering also, not just engineering, which is NPTEL predominantly does engineering. We also do a lot of other non-engineering courses, but predominantly we do engineering. So they wanted to make it a more national portal involving everybody. And that's how SWAYAM sort of was formed. So SWAYAM was launched first sometime in 2018, I think, if I'm not wrong. And then NPTEL at that time was running its own portal. And then NPTEL also got on to SWAYAM. And eventually NPTEL was made in charge of bringing up the next version of SWAYAM. And that's when Google and everybody got involved. We wanted to make it bigger, better, faster, etc., more available, etc. All of that came together and we launched SWAYAM 2.0, as we call it now, sometime in May 2019. So that sort of captures the history of this. I didn't quite mention everything. I don't think we have the time for all of that. But the key point I want to point out is SWAYAM offers courses for college students who are in college, aimed at credit. They should be able to do the course, pick up a certificate, go to their university and say, I've done this, give me credit, and the university should be able to give credit. So this needs to, MOOCs have to be mainstreamed in that way, and that needs a good exam, a good quality course, and a good control over that. So that's fine.
No, it's been a long and eventful journey, and I'm sure we'll learn more as we go along. But for SWAYAM, to reach its truest potential, it requires to make the best of all the resources accessible to all the students. So what were some of the challenges that SWAYAM posed that you chose cloud to enable this massive growth and scale?
So I'll tell you a few stories. I mean, there are lots of stories about on-premise solutions that we had before, or even VM-based cloud solutions where you only have like 2 or 3 dedicated servers, big servers that will take a lot of time to come up, etc. And when you offer large-scale education programs with your backend and server being something so clunky and big, and either on-premise or on VMs, the issue is, so students don't come on at an appointed time, or you can't predict when that will happen. Number one. Number two, when you put out assignments around the deadline, there's going to be a big rush, right? So many people are going to come and want to submit assignments, and you can't afford for them to have poor service at that time, right? Because they miss the deadline, and when they miss the deadline, everybody gets upset with the portal. They say, "Oh, this doesn't work, that doesn't work." So, in fact, even when we used to release results, we used to run into trouble. There would be like you'd think people would pace themselves out, slowly see the result when the results come. No, they come at that time when you release results, and whatever you provision, it's difficult to meet those kind of huge demands. So there are many more episodes like this I can tell you, where you see that you're not able to predict how the traffic will react to your portal for various things. There are various workflows. So you run courses, you do exams, you release results. For each of those, there's always this challenge of not being able to predict traffic. Number one. Number two is availability. Availability is a huge issue. We've had we used to put servers on premise here, and IIT Madras, we have a pretty good data center here. But what will happen? There were these floods 3 years back, and then something else, and some big power cut, power failure of the grid in the southern region, etc. So lots of events like that, and you might be surprised. You think, well, that doesn't happen often, but it does happen with amazing regularity, in the sense that people get really upset when it's not there when they want it, and that really is important also. So based on all that experience, it was quite abundantly clear to us cloud is a better solution. And the first portal that we ran was on cloud. NPTEL's first MOOC portal was on cloud, and that gave us that freedom of mind, which was just amazing. It was just peace of mind that whatever happens, my portal is going to be available, and anyone who enters the URL onlinecourses.nptel.ac.in at any time, whatever happens, press enter, it'll come up, right? So I don't need to worry about that being up, and that's something that was very important to us. And in Swayam also, the earlier versions got into some trouble when the traffic became very high. Particularly government portals, minister would announce something, prime minister would announce something, and there'll be this huge influx of traffic. Even 3 weeks back, around August 31st or so, there was a big announcement, and I think we weren't even aware. We look back at the number of instances and the billing, and we see, oh, it's gone up a little bit on September 1st. And then we go back and check what happened on September 1st. Oh, something happened. Somebody announced, ministry announced something. But you don't even have to worry about it, right? I mean, it just goes up when the traffic increases, and that's really amazing. So cloud was a natural fit for our application, large in scale, where traffic cannot be predicted reliably ahead of time, and you can't adjust ahead of time. And you want very high availability, and it was quite natural that we went to cloud.
No, absolutely, and I completely agree, and that has been the driver for several of our customers, and especially when you handling 15 million students. I think that level of scale is something else. Now, just coming back to Google Cloud and the story on that, right? How did you feel Google Cloud helped you address some of those aspects on scalability, on the agility, and the availability to be able to meet that level of demand? Some specific flavor on Google Cloud would help us here.
Okay, so let me tell you how we decided Google Cloud. So first of all, we are a public institution, so we have to do a proper tender and evaluate everybody, and then come to a conclusion, right? So it's not like I have my past experience with Google, so I will just go with Google Cloud. So we are not allowed to decide like that. We have to do a fair evaluation. And we did a very, very fair evaluation. I think seers would know the story. I think people from Google Cloud will also know the story. So the way we did it was, we first created a cloud neutral application, which was given to anyone who wanted to host it and prove to us that their service is very good. And then the 3 leading providers all came in. Google was one of them as well. And they got that cloud neutral version of the software from us and deployed it in whatever way they saw fit in their infrastructure. So they did that. And they gave us access to that deployment, and we ran tests with whatever testing, I think JMeter or something like that. So we created tests to measure both peak load, which would show how the infrastructure and how the deployment scaled when there was suddenly a surge in demand. Did the response time shoot or not? We did tests for that. We also did tests for about a long-term steady usage, where that's for cost, right? So the peak usage is just to show that nothing goes wrong, but that demand is for such a short time that your cost is not dominated by that. Your cost is dominated by what your application uses over a longer period of time. So we also did another test, which was for figuring out the budget. Okay, so once again, the application was given to each of the vendors. They deployed it on their infra in whatever optimal way that they saw fit. And then we ran these tests both for stress, sort of not really stress, but I would say peak demand simulation, and the steady state simulation to assess the budget. And then there was this formula giving weightage to both, and then coming up with one metric which would give which is used to rank the 3 vendors. And cost also is a big part in it, right? So while your performance might be really great and you might achieve really good response times in your deployment, if you were using really top-end instances and you are billing us a lot, then that still goes down. So because it's a weighted formula which weights both the cost and of course cost is weighted inversely. The more the cost, you get less points. Okay, and performance is weighted positively, as in if you get better performance, you get better points. And overall, we came up with a system, and the Google Cloud deployment ended up winning the tender. Okay, so that's the story of how we got into Google, and I think that's the method that, I mean, in case if you're thinking of taking to cloud, I think that's a good method for you to follow. I mean, many of the providers today give you test accounts to play around, deploy a solution, test it out. Because I mean, even though the features mostly look the same from the outside, if you're doing clunky VM deployments where you control the whole thing, just one VM you rent out, it's a different story. If on the other hand, you want to put out an application which is really needs scale, and you're relying on the platform's past features, you better test it out. And because I think it's not very easy to know. It depends on your application, it depends on the strength of the infra, so you have to test it out, and that's what we did.
Awesome. So again, you spoke about cost and affordability. So all the courses on Swayam today are free, and that obviously means that the platform has to maintain the efficiencies at the back end, so the benefits can be passed on to the students. How has running the platform on Google Cloud help you bring down the cost and improve the platform's cost efficiencies to meet the affordability goal?
So yeah, costs have gone down. This is a documented fact on Swayam. After we moved to Google Cloud, costs have gone down quite significantly in spite of usage going. The usage goes up and costs remain low. And I think it's got to do a lot with these, the peak demand that I mentioned. So if you were running it without these kind of past services, like we use App Engine for that matter. So if you're using some other service where you have to provision the resources, and you don't know how to provision, and you can't keep on changing the provisioning every day, and it doesn't work. And courses run, there's so many hundreds of courses run, and the deadlines are all over the week. And supposing you provision everything at max level, then you'll be hitting the same max every month, and not when course is not running, right? So even during a week, there are lull periods, and you really want to take advantage of that and reduce your cost. And that we were able to do quite easily with App Engine. There are some quite simple settings that you can look at carefully and control really how many instances are going to be out there, and let it climb with demand, and at the same time control. Don't let it go out of control, right? So don't let it be too high. So billing is controlled. And at the same time, you don't want the response time for the queries in your application to go so high that people are not going to come back, and then you won't have any demand at all. There's no point in that also. So there are settings to control that, and then so that helps you. So I think for our level of scale and for our application, we have those settings carefully looked at. We have a company that helps us do that. So they look at that closely, but that's an important part of the journey as well. And I think you should take help, and we do get some help from Google Cloud and Sears also in that direction. But that help is important. So once you set it up properly, then you don't have to worry about cost being a big factor, right? So that's something one should do carefully. But of course, there's lots of variety today in cloud. I mean, so much choice is there. Do you go with Kubernetes? Do you go with something else? Do you go App Engine? Different people have different levels of familiarity with these things. And finally, at the end of the day, you'll make your decision based on, I have this engineer. I know that this engineer only knows this, so I'll make this decision. That might be the situation. But in case you can have good engineers who look at these things very closely and can understand the kind of support that you will get from Google Cloud for this, then you can set it up in that fashion. And I would say App Engine is very good, and I think I've seen quite a few other deployments. The costs here, if you have good engineers who control these numbers carefully, can be much lower than anything else that you can imagine.
Absolutely, and that's been a key driver right through the evaluation process. And I'm glad that you're able to see those efficiencies that you can build in to make the solution more affordable and more reachable. Just moving on to vision, Professor Andrew, what's your vision for technology-led education, and how is NPTEL and IIT Madras working on redefining the online education landscape in India? Can you please share some new initiatives on the anvil?
Okay, so if you look at the journey so far, IITs of course are a very highly reputed brand in India. About anything with the IIT stamp has value, and NPTEL has made it possible for students from anywhere in India. I mean, there are wonderful stories of somebody from the Northeast, someone from a really tier 2, tier 3 town without much privileges, first generation learners, parents are very poor, college somehow helps them get NPTEL certificates, and these students come up in life wonderfully because of that. There are very uplifting stories of that kind. So we have achieved quite a bit in this short time through NPTEL and SWAYAM. By offering individual courses. So right now what we offer is individual courses. Every semester there are a bunch of courses. Students can go take this particular course in this particular discipline. Let's say, for instance, I don't know, electromagnetics in physics or something like that. They can go study that and get a certificate. And that's what been happening. It's been quite successful, very good. So going forward, one needs to think of the natural next step. Right? So the natural next step is to think of, diplomas, degrees, can you do even that more meaningfully in large scale with high quality? And IIT Madras has recently come up with this online degree program, PSc in programming and data science, which we are all offering, once again, open for anyone to come and attempt and see if they are good enough and qualify and get through. And this program also promises to be really, really a big one. So we have a blended thing. So we don't do everything online. Instruction is online. It's on an online portal. Once again, that portal also sits on Google Cloud. So it's instruction is online, but all our exams are in person. Once again, every month we have an exam for this program. It's a much more rigorous program. You can build up credits. As you build up credits in this program, you pay only as you go. Every time you want some credits, you pay for those credits. You do the course, do the exam. If you earn the credits, you have them. And then as you pick up enough credits, at the end of the journey, if you've completed everything, you can even get a BSc degree from IIT Madras and become an alum of IIT Madras. And that's a very prestigious thing at the end of it. It's quite a demanding program. I think being online, students do face the challenge of being lonely, not having friends to talk to about what they're learning. But I believe it's a good step. It's a very interesting step in the direction of online learning. It promises a lot. We'll be able to evaluate a lot about the potential here, online instruction, plus in-person exams, plus a big brand institution like IITM backing it. It's got a pretty good reaction now. A lot of people know about it. A lot of people ask us about it. A lot of people have applied for it. So we are trying to run this program. So it's a very ambitious program, but we hope we can pull it off and make this lofty goal of having high quality, large scale program, which is inclusive, affordable, all of these nice adjectives coming together and giving us a solution. If you look at the numbers in India, it's really, I think many of us go to college, right? We go to good schools. Out of that, we go to college. How many of us from school know of friends who didn't go to college? Very few, maybe, right? But you look at the gross enrollment ratio of India, it's 26%, right? What do 74% of the people do? Don't go to college, right? So it's difficult for most of us to imagine that. And for many of them, it's because of family situation. I think if you really look at it, they cannot afford to have 3 more years of education when their family is struggling. So they would do something very quick, go in and work at a low-skilled labor job mostly. Quite a wide variety of such jobs are there. But what happens to them is after a few years or even during that time, they realize that they can maybe get a degree. And at that time, they don't have a good solution. A really solid solution is not there. And the country is very aware of it. The ministry is also very aware of it. They have ambitious goals, the new education policy to increase GER to 50% and all that. And I think online is a wonderful solution for them.
Okay, great, Professor Andrew. In fact, I was actually going to ask you this in my next question, but I think you've covered some part of it. Because as I see it, digital is revolutionizing the whole paradigm of education delivery to make it more accessible to students and, again, affordable. Now, in specific in context to cloud, how do you think it's going to influence the whole future of online learning and making it accessible to a larger group of students around the world?
So when you talk in terms of these kind of numbers, it's a bit mind-boggling. I think when you say 25% to 50%, it seems like a sort of a trivial thing at some level, right? So, okay, 25%, 50%. But you actually look at the number of people involved, number of seats that you need to create to go from 25% to 30%. It's mind-boggling. it's in the crores almost. I mean, it's tens of lakhs, several tens of lakhs of seats you need to create. And it's almost impossible to create those kind of seats very quickly also. So it'll take a long time, and you can do it either over a period of time or you do it fast. So online definitely is a very natural and good solution for creating these college seats. But I would say also that there is a huge challenge here. One of the big challenges, in my opinion, which I think a lot of people sort of brush aside, but I think it's very critical, is examinations. Okay, so you think about it, and to the extent that we have evaluated today, there is no solid examination system that you can rely on, which doesn't have a very strong in-person component. So if you set up centers, if people can go to centers and write exams, that's good. But even there, you need a system, isn't it? Supposing today, I believe the maximum that one of the leading exam providers can do is about 75,000 to 1 lakh in a particular city, right? But look at the school exams. When people write board exams, easily there are like so many more lakhs are writing at the same time. So how do you do that? How do you, supposing you have to disseminate exams in lakhs at the same time? How do you do that? This is as unknown. Even otherwise, if you don't rely on a strong in-person component, exam solutions are difficult to come by. They don't scale that easily, right? I mean, so imagine just putting videos. Even if you put videos and monitor people, how many video streams can you handle? It quickly breaks down. It's in the few hundreds, in fact, right? Once it hits thousands itself, things start breaking down when you have so many video streams coming in. And cloud, no cloud, today there is no real good solution for large scale online simultaneous exam delivery. And I think that's a big bottleneck for Edtech in our kind of scale. Even in small scale, maybe that is there, but that's important. So examinations is something that people should focus on. I mean, you might say a lot of things about it, but exams are here to stay. That's the only way you can evaluate reliably, and the universities depend on it. Everybody depends on it. Companies depend on it, right? So you're not going to hire someone who says, "Oh, I learned all this, but I've never written an exam in my life." Right? So it's not going to work like that. So you really need exams, and I think if somebody can crack that problem, give a very nice solution for that, things will take off much more. Many more people will benefit out of it. But I have no doubt that the future involves, even in a physical campus, the future involves a huge online presence. Students will have the option to take, X course from this institution, Y course from another institution, be physically in a third institution, and pick up a degree which would maybe simultaneously have some computer science, have some aesthetics, have some, cooking, whatever, everything put together, and really get well-rounded, high-quality education in a wonderful package.
Well, this is great, Professor Andrew. Thanks for those thoughts, and it's really interesting to hear, how Swayam started, how you scaled it to meet the demand of millions of students at an affordable cost. You've achieved cost efficiencies. Clearly we are making it available to all the students across different scenarios. I just think it's a very interesting story, and I'm glad that cloud's been an enabler in that journey for you. So thank you again, Professor Andrew, for sharing those thoughts. I think the future is super bright, and I think you've given us a problem to think about in terms of how do we manage examinations as we move forward. I think we've addressed one part of the whole online education story with cloud, but something for us to sort of think through and problem solve as well together. And with pioneers like you, I'll be happy to work with you to see how we can make the impossible possible. Thank you again, Professor Andrew, for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I hope the audience really enjoyed this talk. Please feel free to ask questions on the chat window. With that, I'm going to pass this back to Shipra.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Andrew. I think it was fantastic listening to you. As you so passionately spoke about revolutionizing education with technology, and especially for taking us through Swayam's cloud journey and how it is helping you enable one of India's leading integrated platform and portal for online courses, and take the best teaching and learning resources to students across the country. So, but even more fascinating it was to hear your vision of how digital can help revolutionize the whole paradigm of education delivery, making it more accessible and affordable. And we really look forward to see how the tech-led revolution in the Indian education sector unfolds over the coming months. I'm not saying years, I'm saying months, because we are really seeing the pace of innovation has really accelerated, and the pivotal role that cloud will play in that, we all are looking forward and excited to see how that will shape up. So thank you once again, and thanks Deepak for taking us through that discussion. And to all our viewers, if you have any questions for Professor Thangaraj as well as for Deepak, please do drop in your questions in the chat box, and we will take those questions up live or during the Q&A session. And before the Q&A session, we have one more segment which we want to cover, and that is also very important because, a key pillar for any successful cloud journey is the partner. And it's a partner who ensures that your journey is optimized and the results are maximized. What you set out to achieve with your cloud journey, you achieve on those key business outcomes. So let's hear from the partner, and I would like to invite Ankit Sinha, Vice President, Cloud Practice and Consulting at Sears. Ankit leads all practices and consulting teams for the APAC region. This includes the cloud, data, AI and ML, work transformation, local intelligence, app modernization, and cloud native app engineering practices. With over 16 years of technology and sales experience at IBM, SAP, Google, and most recently at Paytm, Ankit brings in the best of cloud and business understanding. So over to you, Ankit. Please take it forward from here.
Thank you so much, Shipra, for the nice introduction. Obviously, the most important piece of the introduction, I had left it for myself. That's, way back. I was a student at IIT Madras, and after listening to Professor Andrew, I'm quite happy that the electrical engineering department has still not figured out a way for assessments. Brings a lot of joy to me to remember the difficult times we had just taking one course, EE101 or something like that, with the electrical engineering department there. But times have changed. I would really like to focus on our experience working with a lot of the companies that are focused on delivering solutions for the new age world. I would probably just take a little bit of opportunity, I think not more than 10 minutes, to run through a few slides, if you allow me. And I would like to talk about how Sears can actually be the partner of your choice in going through this journey towards finding solutions for the new world. That's Sears for us. The company has a very, very simple mission that we would like to identify better ways of doing things. We are largely a technology-driven company, and when we partnered with the likes of Google several years back, what we really got was in this rocket engine that allows for so much innovation and really looking at solving problems at scale. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with Professor Andrew and NPTEL. In all these years, we get challenged. The kind of problems that are being tackled here are massive. And for us, it's not just trying to always be that consulting partner, but I always look at these challenges as a learning opportunity for everyone here at Sears, the consulting teams, the engineering teams. And it's great that the Google partnership has been so long, so we always are able to kind of find some solutions and keep progressing ahead. It's kind of important that we just kind of look at everything from a little bit of a holistic picture, because Google's been in this education space for several years. It identifies, Google's mission also is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. Education kind of fits very nicely into themes, and a lot of you would have heard about the recent announcements that Sundar Pichai, the CEO at Google, made about how deeply they'll be making further investments in uplifting the education standards of the country. It's really coming down, and now that I look at what's happening on the online digital space, especially with cloud, we have tried to bucket it under 4 themes. Again, education is one topic, edutech is one topic, but as you would think, it's not just for people that are in the business of education. Every single corporate that we work with used to make significant investments in their training, in their upskilling. I mean, any knowledge worker obviously gets sharpened when there is continuous investment in a skill. So I would not like you to think of this being a edutech problem alone. I guess you're trying to cover the requirements here that required to upskill people. It was always about operationalizing and minimizing and optimizing costs, getting it at less risk as possible, transforming the whole classroom experience, and enhancing the collaboration piece. Through his stories, Professor Andrew obviously touched upon almost all four of these things. And we have also been trying to recommend that, you solve one problem, you solve probably the problem of the classroom, and the next problem of assessment begins to show up. You basically are, you come up with some solution to track attendance, for example, but then you really realize that no, it's about not attendance tracking in a video meeting. It's actually about tracking engagement of the student, and then it's not just engagement, it's also then the assessment piece. So that's where the classroom transformation pieces come in. And again, I would like to emphasize that it's not a problem that we think it's just an education sector problem. It's a problem that we want to tackle in every single organization. What have we been recommending? We have always been recommending that we look at things like lifting your current workloads, modernizing those applications, modernizing the internal infrastructure. We would want to really get into the places where you have assistance, you have AI enabled, let's say, bots, if you can call it, to actually ensure that there is engagement and success for the students being managed. What Google also always has been, very interestingly being developing for the last several years, and now it's such a fine polished product, is the G Suite Enterprise for Education, which allows you to kind of centralize everything in a SaaS-based platform. So obviously there'll be few of us who would want to be in the business of creating new solutions, but Google G Suite Enterprise for Education packages a lot of those things in a SaaS-based platform as well. And it has some cool nifty features. I mean, I really like the fact that, when it comes to assignment submission, you have one single click of a button to really know whether the report that this people are submitting is authentic or not, and it will give you very nice details of from which section and which line was basically picked from which source on the net. So what we really are trying to do is to bring this enormity of Google scale to solve some of these problems. And as I said, everybody has a very different starting point. And this is what we have established, working with more than 2,000 companies just in India. Our enterprise teams have worked with some of the largest corporates and houses in India to cover and basically look at what might have been one or two of their asks, whether it be on the cloud side, whether it be on the data analytics side, or whether it was AI use cases, and we come up with different solutions for each one of them. Sears, it's an organization which has been there for around 15 years. It's an Indian headquartered company, and we have now 600 people. Mostly we would like to think of ourselves as engineers at heart, but we get into different businesses that are required to work closely with you. And as I have been repeating, we worked closely with Google Cloud so that we could actually take their tech might, their product experience, and bring it really live in your environments. The one thing which I have been talking about is that, yes, every organization is different. The challenges that NPTEL solved 3 years back, very different from what they would be looking at next. We also believe that this is why one needs to have a very modular engagement style. In several cases, we know that it was about getting to look at the current applications, databases, analytics, and infrastructure, and helping you modernize. Professor Andrew referred to app engine. And that's really great, because even some of our earliest stories with Khan Academy in US, where Google Cloud has published a lot of material as to how Khan Academy was built, that also uses App Engine. A lot of us would want to run our traditional applications in virtual machines, which is Compute Engine. There would be the Google Kubernetes engine for people who really want to now take the containers and Kubernetes journey. There would be places where you would be stuck because of your choices that you made on databases several years back, or the fact that we were not really looking at analytics in terms of real time and streaming analytics previously, and now we want to get there. So what we typically do is we start sometimes with a consulting assignment. We definitely try to manage the account from a technical health perspective with our TAMs, and we also have a conscious effort to ensure that the cloud is truly optimized in your environment, because otherwise it's just somebody else's machine, and that's not how it should be. We will obviously like to ensure that people that are working with us get the kind of support, get the kind of managed services, and we would not only be focused on, let's say, one product line or one technology line, but we would definitely like to stitch the whole thing together and keep restitching things together as new things kind of keep coming forward. The last piece at the bottom is Sears has a bunch of engineers which are really keen. So to really take that anecdote, the professor said that, sometimes you just choose based on the engineering talent available to you. So we would really like to ensure that you also get partners to co-develop things if you would really like to go that way. We have ourselves been developing some products. Recognic is a Sears developed IP in which we look at documents, scan them, run OCR, make intelligence out of that content. And we have been also using something called a Happier Work, which is our own Sears IP again. But yes, otherwise you can see we work with Google Maps platform, the API platform, end-to-end APGPs, Google Cloud Search, Google Cloud, G Suite, and all. I'll just take one last minute. Yes, it's been a good journey for us to see how we earned the love and trust of customers, and then we went from strength to strength. At this point of time, I'm happy to say that we work with companies outside India, in the Southeast Asia, UK, and US as well. And we learn a lot from what's happening in different markets, because let's say in the Southeast Asia, some of the education problems that they have resolved have been, they have been at it for several years, and they have smaller sections to manage. So you kind of bring best practices from anywhere in the world, and you help customers all the time. This is my last message. We definitely would like to work with you. If you're finding any of the messages interesting, Deepak alluded to a lot of the benefits of really not waiting for things to happen, but seizing control. So if you would really want to think and just discuss in a very open manner any of your, let's say, wish list and the priorities that you have as an organization for the upcoming years, we would be happy to get a cloud consultant to talk to you. And Cloud Architects will work again, perhaps in a remote workshop. But yes, we will definitely get started. My email address and phone numbers there, just in case you do not get a follow-up and you're listening to the live recording later on. So with that, I would like again to thank you for the time. Shipra, I'd like to transfer it back to you in case you received any questions from the audience and if there is anything else that's left. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ankit, for that wonderful presentation. Yes, we have some questions for Professor Andrew, for Deepak, and you as well. And it actually shows that there's a lot of excitement that is building up in the education sector. And Deepak, the first question actually I would like to put across to you.
Sure.
Considering there's a lot happening in the edtech space, so the question is that what has Google Cloud done in the edtech space to help institutes cope with the shift in online learning?
Oh, lots. In fact, I'm actually going to break down my answer into 3 parts. So There are several aspects of learning, and I'm just going to pick the three that are most important in revolutionizing the way the whole online learning platforms are evolving. The first is an increased investment on our platform to ensure that there is audio, video, visual learning. So, if you use Google Meet, which is what was called Google Hangouts, if you see the kind of functionalities, the different things that we have added to that whole platform is just immense from where we were even last year. So I think the first area where Google's been really developing a lot is in this whole aspect of providing the video conferencing and AV facilities. That's number one. Number two, we have Google Classrooms that allow you to run classrooms pretty similar to what Professor Andrew alluded to in terms of driving courseware, where teachers can pretty much sort of upload the courseware, and of course students can access it, pretty much run it like a classroom, but only in an online setting. And we have solutions available as a part of Google Classrooms. Please Google it, and you will see a lot more on Google Classrooms, which provides an absolute seamless experience to any tutor, any teacher sitting anywhere in the world, and providing course content to students as if they were in a class, and pretty much sort of assessing the coursework. People can raise their hand and ask questions. So it's again a very interactive platform where we're learning from. The third thing that we are doing outside of the whole video conferencing and this whole Google Classroom piece is the ability to provide recommendations to students. And we are seeing skill development as a big focus area for the market. And we are seeing a lot of companies asking for how do I recommend courses to my students. So if I'm interested in a specific stream, let's say in arts, and I would like to know more about a course, what other certification courses on art can be made available through a recommendation engine that are relevant to that person's skill development and overall personality. So I would feel that this whole AI ML piece that is built into that recommendation is again another feather in the hat, really speaking, for the cloud world, where students can pretty much sort of pick and choose courses based on what is best suited for them, rather than being bombarded with hundreds of choices that are available to them. So I'd say I'd summarize it in three parts: the whole investment around the platform on Meet, this whole Google Classrooms that makes it interactive, and thirdly, like I said, this whole advent of AI ML, which is just tremendous from a development and learning point of view.
Okay, great. Professor Andrew, so there's one question for you, and the question is that, what technology challenges did you face in terms of shifting classes online? And how are the in-person experiences being overcome?
Okay, so the first challenge, I guess, would be in terms of creating the content, right? So recording the lectures and all that. But that's not, one could say it's very old, as in video recording technology has been there for a while now. But then how do you make it more interesting? Can you do something more than just a video recording of a faculty member? So that's a nice and interesting technology challenge by itself. But we don't do too much in that area. We just let the faculty handle it. The next important challenge is how do you let me say, assess students online. Okay, just purely online, just based on things like, supposing you're learning C programming, right? Is it enough to just ask questions on syntax? Is that enough to assess somebody's C programming skill, or do you need to develop an application where the student would actually program and then test that program against test cases and see if it succeeds? So do you let the student do some hands-on programming stuff, particularly for programming courses and all this? So there are various similar questions for other areas also, right? Traditionally, teachers had a certain way of assessing students. Can you replicate that online? So how do you make it very solid online? That is another challenge that we had. In terms of engaging with students, there are various ways in which we do it. There is a discussion forum on the site where students can ask questions and they are answered quite regularly. In fact, faculty who offer courses get on a live webinar type session every month, and they interact with students. And so it's not too bad. It's engaging enough, but not as good as a classroom engagement where you have people sitting next to you. You can joke with them, you can poke them a little bit, do that. All that is hard. I don't know if there's any technology that's going to solve that problem for you. But other than that, just from the content point of view, it's okay. And we solve the classroom presence problem in a different way. We let colleges partner with us, and entire college as a unit participates in the program. So then you have some, cohort in the college locally, which helps you tackle this loneliness and being alone issue.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, but I completely agree with you when you are saying that while technology can plug in a lot of gaps, yes, of course, the experience, the in-person experience is something that definitely is a gap that does stay. But of course, since a lot of other technology advancements that are taking place, they do help in overcoming a lot of other challenges around accessibility and affordability. Great, thank you so much, Professor Andrew. And so I have a question for you, Ankit. There's a question that has come, which is that, what are the parameters that you look at while recommending a cloud platform to an Edtech client?
Oh, great question. I don't believe there is one standard answer. One solution does not fit all, and hence the kind of options that GCP gives to you. But there are definitely some common themes that we have seen, and Deepak and Professor Andrew spoke about it. There is a huge scaling and an elasticity requirement that definitely comes up with all edtech companies. It needs to scale down to zero in most of the cases, because mostly you would be focused on a particular country, and you would want things to be zero. You do not want to be having, let's say, virtual machines that run at peak at 60% capacity and have to be left on. So hence, some of the platforms that have been recommended in the past, like App Engine, and the way we are going towards more Google Kubernetes engine kind of workloads, have been generally the themes per se. Again, on the choices that we are making when it comes to databases, it's evolving very quickly, because what people are realizing is that the requirements will change. The kind of information that we need to capture and analyze will change over the years, and from becoming a very teacher student dependent, you would get data involved in education again to kind of really have those signals to feed you as to where the student needs more help. So we are obviously getting the focus on data a lot more. And I would think on the compute side, we get a lot of elasticity requirements. I mean, GCP does great there. It'll probably charge you per API call. It'll probably charge you for exact number of requests that you make. It'll charge you per second. So it kind of does that optimization job quite well. Thank you.
Okay, so there's this one more question, Ankit, for you, and I think this is a very important question. So how do you take care of security at scale? So were there any challenges with respect to that? Because here we are talking of numbers and a scale which probably we will not see even in one of the largest of enterprises, of large of businesses. So how do you ensure security at that kind of scale?
This probably requires a whole different session, but I would say it even starts down. I mean, so with Professor Andrew and his initiative, probably you're still looking at adults, but you can imagine that when it comes to online security, it starts right from the identity with which students would be logging on to these services, and how that identity information is secured. How, for a lot of companies that are probably in the commercial space where content is everything that their business is on, so they would want to worry a lot about content security, that it should not, it should not basically be misused. It should not be recorded by the end people. So, the challenges that Netflix would have would also be similar to any education content company as well. From the backend perspective, from the perspective of keeping your resources secure, from trying to ensure that people are accessing only from authorized devices, there have been lots of interesting innovations that GCP teams have brought to the fore, and Sears has seen great implementations of Beyond COP. It's a context-aware access that allows the engine to really know who is precisely behind the thing. We have seen people use enterprise reCAPTCHA. It's better than the reCAPTCHA that we typically fiddle around with on website, and web risk APIs to allow again to know that, okay, which IP addresses am I getting traffic from, and is this really something that I would like to allow, and stuff like that. So it's a very, very wide topic, but I would think that different corporations looked at all those security topics piecemeal, and now you bring everything together, and then that's what this space really needs to think about per se. Thank you.
So Deepak, I have the next question for you, which is, what are the kind of trends that you are seeing among your EdTech clients going forward? I think there's a lot of work, as we have seen in the last 1 hour conversation. There's a lot of technology advancements that are happening. But what are those top trends that you're seeing among your EdTech clients?
Yeah, I'm going to pick on, just a couple of them, because I think these are very vast areas we can go into. But I think the couple of things that I'm seeing a lot of EdTech clients do is to create content and to make it available at scale. And hence, this whole access, anytime, anywhere becomes so much more important. It's no longer about just kind of making courses available offline and making them people watching content. It is about making it accessible over a mobile device. So the edge becomes important, right? So now we're seeing a lot of folks moving towards learning over the phones, and clearly how do we make content available in different form factors, different kind of systems. We have Android as again part of Google stack. How do we leverage the power of the operating system to make sure that we provide intelligent content on the edge to the students? That's clearly an area that is picking up. I spoke briefly about the whole analytics journey that I'm seeing a lot of EdTech clients take in terms of providing personalized and more intelligent recommendations to our students. But not just that, I'm now seeing a lot of advent of things like speech to text, text to speech, vision API solutions being integrated for the again visually impaired, or again maybe there could be a disability. So kind of increase the whole gamut of the student community in terms of making learning accessible to everybody irrespective of ability. I see a whole lot of content being converted from speech to text and text to speech, so that the learning becomes that much more easier. So I'm seeing a lot of that being integrated with our EdTech customers, providing recommendation, personalized experiences to students. That is the second important thing. And thirdly is just like I said, I think eventually the EdTech customers have to start thinking about how do we make this whole assessment and learning system more accessible. I think Professor Andrew made a very relevant point when he said, how do I eventually certify? How do I eventually evaluate learning a certain grading system? So how do we build out solutions and applications that can help enable that? So like I said, it's a vast answer. I'll try and keep it as concise as possible on the whole aspect of analytics and machine learning and AI. Lot of inventions happening on the whole edge ML, which is machine learning on the edge. A whole lot of stuff is going on there. And then finally, just this whole aspect of working with our partners to provide assessment systems for students is now gaining traction as a trend going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Deepak, for giving us that view into the kind of trends that we are looking at. So I think with that, I would like to conclude today's session. A lot of learnings, a lot of exciting new technological developments that we got an insight into that Google Cloud is working on. And Professor Andrew, thank you so much for sharing your vision with us, not only with Swayam, but overall with respect to digital driving the future of education, or kind of not just future, but revolutionizing education in India in terms of accessibility and affordability. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Ankit. And I would like to thank all our viewers who have joined us for this session. And I wish all of you a great day ahead. Stay safe, and thank you once again, and bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.